Most tax pros leave a message.
It's Jane. I'm moving on to a TurboTax expert who beat your price. Adam Devine, tell him how I feel.
Hey, tax pro, she's been thinking twice. Best believe TurboTax will beat your price. This is a tax break.
Switch to a TurboTax Live expert and we'll beat what you paid your pro last tax season. Make the switch at turbotax.com/beatyourprice. TurboTax full service only. Sign up by 12/20/2024 and file by 4/1/2025. Full details at turbotax.com/beatyourprice.
Stop. 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 Had enough? Kick out mucus and quiet the cough with Mucinex 12-Hour DM for long-lasting cough and chest congestion relief. Buy Mucinex 12-Hour DM at your local retailer. Use as directed.
1,
2,
3,
4.
Monster movie.
Fun time, go! Monster movie.
Fun time, go. Monster
Movie.
Fun time.
Go!
Monster movie. Fun time, go.
With Precious D and Honey Bee.
Fun time, go!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, welcome to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. 31 Days of the Dead. Day 18. Today's guest is my sister, Lita Lopez. Welcome back to the show, Lita.
Brains! Hello. Hello. Good to be back. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome for being had. Today, we're going to talk about a little gem called My Fair Zombie.
Oh, what's a gem?
2013. I actually own this movie on Vudu. Well, it was on sale for like $5 on Vudu at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, oh, okay, click. And then I didn't watch it for a couple of years.
Okay.
So that's part of why I put it on the list, so I could finally watch it. But at least I didn't have to watch commercials, because it is on Tubi and a couple of other things. It's on Prime. You can watch it for free.
I got it on Prime. I rented it. I thought about buying it. And I'm kind of glad I just rented it, because I don't know if I'll watch it again. Maybe. I don't know. Let's talk.
You could have watched it for free on Tubi, but you would have had to.
No, I didn't want commercials. No, I did not want commercials. Okay. And I think, especially with something like this, commercials would have just like really broken up the flow.
Yeah, because I don't think sometimes if something's on like Peacock, they show all the commercials at the beginning, and then you can just watch it, and that's fine. Yeah. But Tubi will break into your. Frequently. That used to be just the way we watch things, but we're all spoiled
but
now.
I feel like their commercials are pretty frequent, and with things that aren't already set up for commercial breaks, they break in at weird times too. So
yeah.
So I was happy. I mean, we got it cheap. It was cheap to rent on Amazon. It would have been cheap to buy too, but I'm glad I watched it without commercials. Okay, let's get into it.
It's from, as I said, it's from 2013. It's directed by Brett Kelly, who has directed a lot of very low budget things.
Mm-hmm. I looked
some of which I have heard of. Yeah. Raiders of the Lost Shark, Thunderstorm, The Return of Thor, She-Rex, Conga TNT, which is actually on the list for our regular Kaiju podcast. I started watching that once.
I saw that and I was like, you guys should watch this.
To it. Yeah, it's on the list. Ouija Shark, Puppet Shark. A lot of the kind of things you'll find on SRS Cinema.
What is SRS?
They release things on Blu-ray and DVD and occasionally even a VHS. And a lot of it is Amityville Shark, killer toilet, but they'll also do a few things that we've covered on the show that are, here's this Korean kaiju film from 50 years ago that everybody thought was lost or that has never been released in the US.
Okay.
And things like that. So they've put out a couple of things that are both good, but also significant in the genre. And then they've put out a lot of just crap. And it all ends up getting released on Tubi or Pluto or that kind of thing. Let's take a look at our cast.
Well, I'll say this. It looks like Brett Kelly has a little repertoire company that he works with frequently. I wonder if they have,
I noticed,
a theater company that they actually are all involved with.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if he had met them all or found them all at the local community theater.
Mm-hmm.
And then just kept using them. But let's see. We have Sacha Gabriel as Eliza Doolittle, Lawrence Evanchik as Henry Higgins, Barry Kager as Colonel Pickering, Jennifer Valance as Mrs. Pierce, and she's one particular I noticed was actually been in a lot of stuff, but much of it might have been his stuff. Jason Redmond as Freddie Einsford. Huh?
She's in several Brett Kelly films, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Jason Redmond as Freddie Einsford Hill, Trevor Payer as Nepomuk. I don't know what that is. Yeah. Gabriel McKenzie as Mrs. Einsford Hill, Penelope Goranson as Mrs. Higgins, Glenna Chow as Zombie, Veronica Dark, that's D''ARC, as Parlor Maid, Jody Hauke as Rough Man, John Miglior as Zombie, Madison Payer as Bitey, kid one, Ian Quick as French Ambassador, Anik Rompri as Zombie, Corey Tibbetts as Zombie, Shannon Walker as Maid, Peter Whitaker as Police Officer, and Robert Mayer as Zombie. Uncredited in this movie? Seriously?
Okay.
Not okay.
There is someone very important that is missing.
Who's
that is Thea Nikolic, who played the flower girl at the opening.
Oh,
she is in other Brett Kelly
This
films.
is IMBD.
I know. I looked it up. I looked her up this morning right after I finished it because I was like, what else has she been in? She's my favorite in this. And she's not listed in this for some reason. I don't know why.
Wow.
I actually messaged someone on Facebook to say, hey, why aren't you listed in the credits? I think I found her on Facebook. And I messaged her to just say, add yourself, because she really was my favorite part. But it was
also hilarious what they did with her.
Well, that angered me too. So.
Oh yeah, I was so okay. So folks, let's just explain what this is a little bit. In case you didn't figure it out from the title, or you just know nothing about musical theater, this is My Fair Lady with zombies. My Fair Lady is a musical version of the play Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw, which is now in the public domain. I don't think My Fair Lady is in the public domain, but Pygmalion is, which means that they're able to use all the names of the characters and actual dialogue from the original play in this, similar to Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. However, according to the trivia on IMBD, he first came up with this idea in 2007, and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies didn't come out until 2009. The book, the movie came out later. Sure. So take that for what you will. I just assumed that was the inspiration until I read this trivia. I want to give a little more trivia while I'm on this page. The walls of London were made out of foam. Not
I
surprising.
knew it.
At first, I thought something else was going on. An iPhone was used for Jason Redman to lip sync to for his solo musical number. I don't know what that. Maybe he had an earbud in or something, or maybe they were just playing it over the iPhone. And the costumes for the extras. This will also be no surprise. In the grand ballroom sequence, such as it was, came from a musical theater company. I assumed all the costumes did, but I did see a credit about one of her dresses specifically coming from someplace in the UK.
I assumed all of the sets and all of the costumes were from a theater company. It looked like it was shot on a lot of it. There were a couple exteriors, I guess, but it didn't even look like a sound stage.
Right.
They very much looked like sets that were made for a stage production, and they just decided.
So at first I thought in the opening, so there's an opening number with the what were they called? Friendly chirpy cockneys? Something chirpy cockney.
Well, the Flower Girl.
There's an opening. Yeah, with the Flower Girl and the people on the streets of London, where it's a very tight shot where you can only see a wall behind them. I think there's an establishing shot of a street of London, or we hear some
Big Ben
beats on the cobblestone. Yeah, so there's some stock footage that they've gotten to show us it's London, but then we just see this fairly tight static shot of this wall. And at first, I just assumed, okay, they have a building that kind of looks like it could be London, but they can't pan out at all, or you'll see it's a modern street. But then as I looked more closely, I'm like, I'm not sure that wall is actually a brick wall.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was just foam, which again is why it's such a tight shot, because there's no building attached to this wall. It's just a wall with it's like two walls with a third wall behind it. So there's a little place to exit and enter from.
Yeah.
Which I've done on stage, not on film, on stage.
On stage. Yes. It all looks so it made me feel like this could be a super fun high school musical production. Like this could become a rotation of, instead of doing My Fair Lady in high school, do My Fair Zombie, because there was so much that was kind of almost really great, but just missing a little oomph and a little cinematic quality. Missing a lot of cinematic quality, but it would be great. It would be so fun on stage. It'd be so fun to perform.
Yes, he should publish this and give people the rights for cheaper than it takes to do My Fair Lady. Yeah. The whole thing was better than I expected. It's very, very cheap. I had not looked up the director before I watched it and realized the other really cheap shit he's done. But it's all very inexpensive. That ballroom, they just rented a place where you can rent for your quinceañera or your wedding reception. Oh, sure. It's the ballroom at the country club or whatever. Yeah. Or the golf course. Which that kind of almost made me mad because it was just so obviously not Victorian. Yeah. Some of the interiors, Higgins' place kind of looked like a real room that had been done up. His mother's place looked like a set, like a really shitty set.
Yeah.
So anyway, it opens with who we think is Eliza Doolittle, who actually might be Eliza Doolittle, performing a little establishing song of we're in London, and by the way, there's also zombies, and we're friendly, cheery, chirpy cockneys, and it's a fun little song. It's not awesome. It's not the best, but it's better than I expected. But
it's the best,
and we get some dialogue. Yes, we get some dialogue from the play, and she's interacting with Freddie and his mother, and she's interacting with Colonel Pickering. And then just as she's about to sing her I Want song, a zombie jumps up and bites her. So I thought that was hilarious. But then instead of her turning into a zombie, we followed that zombie. That zombie becomes Eliza.
Yeah.
Doesn't ever tell us her name is Eliza Doolittle. He just calls her Eliza Doolittle.
Yeah.
So in my mind, that other girl actually was Eliza.
Right.
And this zombie is an imposter.
Right. And yes, this zombie, we don't know who she is or where she's from. And there's some implication later on that maybe she's American. But
that's also, I think, just a cheap joke.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
No, because they say she's a princess, and then they say something about Jewish American. She's a Jewish American princess.
Yeah.
Which is an expression.
Yeah, it did seem like a cheap, unnecessary joke.
Yes.
So the only justification that I can give for this is if this little repertory company, they all work together, and Brett Kelly's like, oh, I love both Thea and Sasha. Who am I going to cast as Eliza? But Thea's so good. Okay, I'll give her a number in the beginning, but then I'm sleeping with Sasha. I'm sorry, that's just my implication. But, Sasha and I have a thing, so I got to give her the lead. So he just split it up like that. But it really, really angered me because I was already invested in the flower girl. Because they had a really long scene standing there talking. If she was just going to get killed off, it could have killed her off much quicker than that.
Right. I don't know any of these people or anything about them, so I'm going to be charitable and assume that he did it just as a twist, that he thought that would be a funny twist.
Okay. And I'm not disparaging any of them.
When we can, we should be charitable and assume the best motivation unless we know otherwise.
Yes, I'm totally kidding about that. I apologize. Yeah. I'm not suggesting anything inappropriate. I'm just saying what was the reasoning behind this. They're all delightful in their.
I think he thought it would be funny.
I guess, but I thought it was funny. I thought
it was funny.
I was very angry about it. It's fine that she becomes a zombie, but then we never saw her again either. We could have seen that zombie later somewhere.
Right.
I just think she got the casting.
Another part of the whole community theater aspect is her zombie makeup. It would look good from 30 feet away if she's on stage and you're in the audience. Yeah. But it looks like crap on film.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's often smudged.
It's just so
yeah.
It's just so clearly makeup. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought part of the inconsistency though might be that they're trying to clean her. I think they mentioned makeup at one point, she's going to the ball, we got to put some makeup on her and make the circles under her eyes less. They're going to be more extreme in the beginning, and as they clean her up.
But then they got extreme again after the ball. Yeah, no, the makeup's not.
Yeah,
they could have achieved.
I don't think they have I think it was just done with some theater makeup and not at all by an expert in special effects makeup. They did not have the budget for an expert in special effects makeup. Tom Savini was nowhere near.
No Greg Nicotero on set. Yeah.
So, but a lot of this is just My Fair Lady, Pygmalion. Of course, they've had to replace all the songs with not quite as good songs and songs in similar places, but not all of them. I don't think there's as many.
Yeah, there were not very many songs.
They didn't do every single song.
They could have done
there's
more.
no
And then,
well, there's no Rain in Spain song, but I don't know how you replace that song
yeah,
without, because you're still going to have to talk about the rain in Spain. You're going to get sued
yeah,
if you try.
right.
I just don't think there's any way to replace that song with another
Yeah.
thing.
That scene was actually was one of my favorites. That it was
Yes.
entertaining and amusing.
Yes, because Spain rhymes with brain.
Yeah, that was all pretty enjoyable.
The scene
I'm trying to see if there's a
not
soundtrack
enjoy.
list.
The scene I didn't care for was the bringing her over to Mother's. The stirring of the teacups that had nothing in them went on too long.
Yes,
There was clearly
I think
nothing
I
in
wrote
those
a note
teacups.
about that. Let's see. Yes, it was. Oh my gosh, my notes at the beginning about the flower girl are kind of funny. I'm just very upset. What did I say? Oh, I do want to. I can't find it, but okay. So the teacup thing was funny, but yes, it went on too long, and then it stopped being funny. I thought it was an interesting. So here's a overall general zombie question. That what is the origin of brains? Can you trace that back to the first movie that was like zombies eat brains?
Yes,
and okay, so
we
then
discussed that earlier in the season, the first episode of the season. Actually, Return of the Living Dead is where the idea of them specifically wanting brains comes from.
Okay, how often though do we ever actually see zombies eating brains? Because the brain is kind of the most difficult organ to get to in the human body. Yep. And then
on purpose.
if right, that's evolution. I just have a lot of questions about zombies and the fact that like, why are there's so many fallacies to me of like, okay, they'll devour one person completely, but yet then there are all these other zombies that are very intact. And what is it about eating the brain? Because if you do eat somebody's brain, then they're not going to be, because the brain kills the zombie. If you kill the brain, you kill the zombie. So then that person's not going to become a zombie. So then it just seems like
okay. So these things, okay. The problem is that not everybody, especially in a comedy like this, sits down and plans out the rules for their zombies. And the rules are different in everything. So in Return of the Living Dead, which is, there's a split. George Romero and his partner, whose name escapes me at the moment, and I'm not going to bother looking it up, they split, and they agreed to basically split the rights. So the other guy got the rights to use the term living dead, and George Romero just used dead. So after Night of the Living Dead, this guy goes off and does Return of the Living Dead. Okay. And Romero goes off and does Day of the Dead. Romero starts focusing on what time of day it is.
Yeah.
So he has night, dawn, day, and then starts remaking those or letting other people remake them. And then eventually does Land of the Dead. And I can't remember what the last two ones are called, but his are Of the Dead. And the other guy does Return of the Living Dead. Yes. But the other guy does Return of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead Part 2, Part 3, Return of the Living Dead, something about a rave or some shit. I don't know. A couple of sci-fi original pictures. So in Night of the Living Dead, they're just eating flesh, and people who get bitten will eventually turn into a zombie. But if they catch you, they might eat you all together. But if you get bitten and get away, then you might become a zombie. But in that one, there's some kind of radiation seems to be turning the dead into zombies, raising the dead. In Night of the Living Dead, in Return of the Living Dead, a chemical is causing the dead to come back to life. So it doesn't matter whether you've been bitten by them or not. Anything that is dead is going to come back as a zombie. And the zombies tell us that they're craving brains because they're in pain. Being dead hurts. And somehow consuming the brains makes it not hurt. They don't go into great detail about why that is. They just seem to instinctually know, if I eat some brains, I'll feel better. But they're not actually passing on a zombie virus. It's just if anything that's dead because of this chemical is going to become undead. So in this movie, they don't bother explaining any details because they don't care about that. They just want to do Pygmalion with zombies.
Yeah.
And they know that zombies like brains. So they made a Jell-O mold. They got a brain Jell-O mold, which you can get.
Yeah.
And put some red Jell-O in it and had her make a mess with it.
Yeah.
So that's...
Which is one of the few times I feel like I've actually seen a zombie eat a brain. Like, you really don't see it that often. They talk about it, but they don't do it.
But in most... Yeah, but in most movies, I think in most movies, they're not specifically trying to get your brains. Anyway, that's what that's all about. The thing I think maybe I like the best, though, I was disappointed that there wasn't a slaughter at the ballroom.
Sure. Yeah,
I wanted to see...
This was annoying, too, that, we just accept these zombies and we can... There was no real threat from the zombies, but then it'd be like, but they might bite you, and there you go. Well, because you were standing right next to one. Like, there was no
it's
urgency.
just like, we have a bit of a rat problem right now. Oh, there's always been rats. There's just a few more of them right now than there normally are. That nobody seemed to be, unlike Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, where they're like, there's a zombie problem where we're doing everything we can. We're kind of accepting that it's going on, but we're also trying to do something about it.
Yeah.
This is just like, there's zombies. You see them every now and then. Sometimes they bite somebody. And nobody's doing anything about it.
Nobody's doing a thing.
Yeah, but I would have liked to, not even taking precautions.
No.
Not wearing long sleeves or wearing a little leather collar around your neck to protect your neck or anything. But I would have liked to have seen Eliza flip out and kill everybody at the ball or something like that.
Sure. That would have been fun.
But the thing I did like was the reversal at the end.
Yeah. Like the very last scene.
Yes. So because I believe the end of Pygmalion is different from the end of My Fair Lady.
I am very familiar with the concept of both, but I can't say that I realized I haven't actually seen My Fair Lady, and I don't remember. I probably read Pygmalion in college, but I don't remember it well.
Well, Eliza leaves, right?
Yeah.
Like the experiment is completed. Henry has hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
Then he realizes he's hurt her feelings and that he misses her and he tries to apologize. And I believe at the end of Pygmalion, she's like, no, I'm going to go off and live my own life. I don't need your shit. Thank you for everything you've done. But now I'm going to, and I think she's like, maybe I'm going to marry, I don't know if she says she's going to marry Freddie or just maybe I'll marry Freddie, but Freddie treats me decently and you don't.
Yeah.
And it is always a weird relationship because they don't exactly have a romance, but they do have a connection. But he's very much, I don't need a woman in my life. They're just a nuisance because,
he's kind
you
of
got to behave yourself. You have to adjust your behavior to other people. You can't just, he doesn't do it in this point, but what he says is she talks about his manners and his excuse is it's not a matter of having good manners or bad manners. It's having the same manners towards everyone. Colonel Pickering treats a flower girl like a lady. I treat a lady like a flower girl. I treat everybody. Pickering treats everybody with dignity and respect. I treat everybody like shit. As long as we're both consistent, that's okay. And he kind of has a point. He's not prejudiced. He's not bigoted. He treats everybody like shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, in Pygmalion, she's like, bye, see ya. In My Fair Lady, she says, bye, see ya, and then comes back.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Does she end up with Freddie or with Higgins?
And it ends with him being a dick. The door opens behind him, and he hears her come in, but he doesn't turn and look at her. He just says, Eliza, where the devil are my slippers? And he leans back in his chair and pulls his hat down over his head like he's going to take a nap. Because this is one of his things that you can't leave. How will I find my slippers? I don't know. I've gotten used to having you around doing shit for me, even though I have other servants.
Right.
So and this indicates that I'm not going to be a better person and be nicer. We're just going to accept who we are. It's the best he can do. It's the closest he can come to say, thank you for coming back. I'm glad you're back. But in the play, she doesn't come.
Well,
I
good
love
for her.
this ending. I love this ending where they change places, where now he's a zombie and she is trying to teach him. Folks, if you haven't caught up by now, the whole premise is that Henry Higgins, an expert in dialect and linguistics, is going to train this flower girl to speak properly and pass her off as a lady. But in this case, the flower girl
not
is
flower
a zombie.
girl, whatever the heck she is. She's not a flower girl.
Yeah, in this case, she's a zombie because she's killed the flower girl, and he's thinking that the zombies can just be taught to speak at all.
Yeah.
And he and Pickering have a bet about it. So, because they're just groaning, and maybe they can say brains, but that's it. So he does end up training her to not just speak, but speak pretty well, and passes her off as a lady. And at the end of this version, he gets bitten, and now we see her trying to teach him how to speak again. And
the hilarious thing is that, okay, did he discover the cure for zombieism? And then why isn't he then? It was a little too easy.
Right.
But
right.
if this is all that it takes is just to teach them how to talk again, then we could end zombieism.
Yeah, we should be implementing this society-wide. We should be capturing all of them, tying them up, and then conditioning them to speak again.
Yeah.
And reintegrating them into society. And dousing them with perfume regularly, because they are actually dead and they do stink.
They do smell. Yes. Yeah. Hey, update. I just got a message back from Thea Nikolic. Thank you, Thea.
Great. Lovely. Well,
I just told her that I was going to be discussing the film in an upcoming podcast, and she was my favorite. I said, are you the same Thea Nikolic? And she said, LOL, yes, that's me. Honestly, I am not the one who updated the IMDb. I would love to get the link when it's done. So we're going to send her the link to this episode. And I might just update her IMDb for her because she needs this credit out there. I
assume she's actually listed in the credits of the movie itself.
Yeah, that's how I found her name. Yes.
That's how you knew. Right, of course.
Yeah, because and in the credits of the movie, they played her song again. So I was like, oh, I'm going to sit and listen to this song.
That's right. They played it at the end.
Yeah, that was... Yes, that song was the most catchy, the most, like, it's still kind of stuck in my head a little bit.
Well, Thea, if you're listening, good job.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
We love you, Thea. I'm going to go look up more of Brett's work, and they're all based in Canada, so it does look like she does do musical theater in Canada. So if we're ever
I do think for the most part, everybody in this movie, all the actors did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Nobody
the
was
best chemistry.
everybody was well. They were all well cast for their parts and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
if you were just doing My Fair Lady, I could believe any of them in those parts. Who had the best chemistry?
The best chemistry was between Pickering and Higgins. Like I really did enjoy them. And I really loved the housekeeper. I forget the character's name now, but she was really
Mrs.
great.
Pierce.
Mrs. Pierce.
Yeah,
yes.
she was
Who's
good.
also in other Brett Kelly films.
Yes, I want to see some of her other stuff. She did a good job.
Yeah, yeah, she was great.
Well, I'm not going to. A few people were not as good. I'm not going to call them out. They're all doing their best. I'll say off.
And Sasha was really good. She had some very, very funny moments. Trying to think of something in particular, but yeah, the woman who played Eliza did. I can see why it was difficult to make the choice between the two of them because she did a great job, and had some nice physical comedy moments and great, just great expression. Like really, really, I bought what was it? There was a moment like. Oh yeah, when they go to the cemetery and she's all, I want to introduce you to my friends. Like that was a great little great timing.
She speaks to them in zombie.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She code switches. She does some code switching in the cemetery.
Yeah. That was pretty funny. So yeah, they did do a great job. Honestly, I just wish this had a bigger budget because the biggest flaws in it are that we don't have great lighting. We don't have great sets. And except for that opening scene, I wanted more musical numbers, like more dance, more razzmatazz, a little jazz hands and, some sequins and glitter, to really get that musical feel. So if he ever gets a budget, he should remake.
This is what you do when you've just found that statement handbag on eBay and you want to build an entire wardrobe around it. You start selling to keep buying. Yep, on eBay. Over that all-black everything phase? List it and buy all the color. Feeling more vintage than ever? It's out with the new and in with the pre-loved. Next thing you know, you've refreshed your wardrobe basically without spending a dime. Yeah, eBay, the place to buy and sell new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion.
Yeah, I've been saying this all season that the most important thing is not your budget or even your quality of acting, but it's starting with a good script. And they've started with George Bernard Shaw.
Sure.
Tweaked it a little bit. So
right.
I think that's part of why it succeeds. But also they've got some good acting going on. It's just that they don't have the budget. But it's still seen some higher budget things and some lower budget things that were just not as enjoyable.
Yeah.
So Lita, how we're using a 1 to 5 brains scale this year. So how many brains are you gonna rate My Fair Zombie?
Can we do it? Okay, 1 to 5. So 5 is the best.
You can do halves. You can do halves as well. Yes, 5 is 1 is I hate it. 1 is I hated it. 2 is I didn't like it. 3 it was okay. 4 I liked it, and 5 I loved it.
I'm gonna go with 3.75 brains. Only for the production value.
Yeah.
I really, if I could, I give Thea 5 brains. I give the other actors 4.5 brains, but the overall execution left me wanting more. So, like, it's entertaining. It's a little slow at times. It's a little too talky at times. We could have more action, but it was fun. It was a fun watch.
So you want to use an Audible scale. When you folks, when you rate a excuse me. After you're done listening to a book on Audible, they ask you to rate it, and you can rate different aspects of it. Like, I like the book itself, but I didn't care for the performance of the narrator, or I like the performance of the narrator, but the book itself was shit. So you can, and I can't remember what the third is. Maybe it's just overall quality. So I'm going to go with I think 3.5.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm coughing. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to go with 3.5. It was certainly better than I expected, and I recommend it. If you like zombie movies, if you like musicals, if you particularly like My Fair Lady, I'm going to say go ahead and watch it on Pluto with ads or wherever.
Yeah. Ooh, this is sad. The IMDb rating is 3.8. I'm sorry, guys. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. But that's out of 10. That's a 10 scale on IMDb. So that's
right. 3.8 out of 10 is not great.
No. I did see somebody's review saying, why is everybody shitting on this movie? It was pretty good. Charming and clever, says the featured review. That gave it 8 out of 10 stars. So that's pretty similar to what we gave it. Well, thanks for joining me, Lita. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. If you enjoy the show, please like and subscribe and rate and review. Pass it around. Post it on your own thing. Repost it is what I'm saying.
Repost it, yes. And I'm adding right this minute, I am contributing to IMDb to add Thea. So that should be updated in a day or two.
All right. Shout out to Thea.
Yeah.
Thea, send us a voicemail. Tell us about your experiences on this movie.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you. Yes.
Absolutely. You can come on the show. Well, that'll wrap it up for today, though. Until next time, I have been Precious D. With me has been my sister Lita. Remember to keep calm and take shelter in basements. Whatever you do, you mustn't misuse science. We won't see you, but you will hear us next time on Monster Movie Fun Time Go. You've been listening to Monster Movie Fun Time Go. If you enjoyed the show, please consider rating and reviewing us on your podcasting platform of choice. You can leave us a message and find links to all our things at mmftg.com.